Hi, this is Rabbi Tzmi Mandel of Congregation Kal B'nai Yisrael, Community of Jewish Friends, on a Tuesday night, Parshas Vayikra. What's the Gleish date? I'm not sure. It's tonight is the fourth day of Nisan, and we'll go straight to the halacha. So we are in the middle of chapter 114 in Kitzer Shulchan Aruch, the laws of the sale of chametz. And as we said, though these laws are basically for a rav, a rabbi, or a bezdin, whoever does in your community, a private person can't do it. There are many halachas, as I said. As I mentioned, there's about 12 or maybe more kinyanim, different ways of acquiring that the non-Jew must acquire it, must buy it from the Jew. So it's very complicated. But just for the Yedis HaTorah, just to get the knowledge of Torah, it's worth it to learn this. We'll finish this chapter tonight. Today is Tuesday night. And the next couple of videos will be Halacha L'Maisa. We'll return back to the things that we learned about. That's practical Halacha. Again, tonight we'll see the Rav Shulchan Aruch. Here we'll see the Mishnah Berurah and the Rav Feinstein, and then we'll look at what the Rav says and what Rabbi Braun says in his interesting Sharm and Tzion Balacha. 114.3. Now this is an introduction to the third paragraph. We have seen in the previous paragraph that the non-Jew must be allowed access to the chametz at the time of the sale. This paragraph addresses whether the Jew may take steps after the chametz was sold in order to prevent a financial loss, if he is afraid that the non-Jew will partake of the chametz and not have the means to pay for it afterwards. Okay. If the one has sold the chametz to the non-Jew, if he is afraid that the purchaser may cause a loss there, he too may place a second lock on the room as a protective measure. See Igros Moshe Yeridea 3:21. See also Even HaEzer 1:145. Okay. Alternatively, if the purchaser agrees to entrust the key that was given to him by the seller with the Jew, this is permissible. But it is prohibited for the Jew to place a seal on the chametz. Placing a seal on the chametz is an indication that the sale is not a genuine one. Pri Megadim rules that although it is important to lock the room containing the chametz after the sale, nevertheless, if one did, the chametz is not prohibited after Pesach. Even though the seller's actions were inappropriate, they do not invalidate a legitimate sale. Moreover, in the opinion of the Pri Megadim, putting a seal on the barrels containing the chametz even before the sale certainly does not prohibit their contents, because the non-Jew knows that the contents were sold subject to later measure, and will assume that the seal was placed simply to prevent him from partaking the chametz before measurement. And this may even be permitted initially, see Bir Halacha 448, so it's not a problem to do that. Okay, we will go to paragraph 4. Chapter 114, paragraph 4. If one is unable to rent out the entire room to the non-Jew, because he too needs to make use of the room. This goes according to the Kitzer Shulchan Aruch and others, that you must rent out the room itself also to the non-Jew. He should erect a partition in front of the chametz and rent that out to him, the area up until the partition. He should write to this effect in the document of sale that is drawn up with the non-Jew. He should also write that the purchaser has a right of way to go as he wishes to that place where the chametz is located, and also that if this non-Jew purchaser wishes to sell the chametz to another non-Jew during Pesach or to another Jew on Isur Chag, the day following Pesach, they all have a right of way to go there. Likewise, if he rents or sells to the non-Jew a room such that in order to get to that room, it is necessary to pass through other parts of the seller's property, he must write to that effect in the document. That is, that the non-Jew purchaser has been granted for himself and for all of the purchases that he may bring there a right of way to go there. Okay, interesting. Although Mishnah Berurah agrees that one must give the non-Jew access to the chametz, which is in Mishnah Berurah 448:12. See also Rav Feinstein, Egus Moshe, note 13, where we mentioned before. The other conditions mentioned by Kitzer here are not found in the Mishnah Berurah. Okay. We will go further to number 5. If the Jew is in possession of the house only as a rental from another Jew, in other words, he doesn't own this house, he may then not rent it out to the non-Jew as a residence without permission from the landlord. Therefore, he should specifically stipulate with the non-Jew that he is not renting it to him in order to live there, but only to keep his utensils and belongings over there. However, he should not rent it to him specifically in order to keep the chametz in it. Rather, he should rent it to him without specification, in order to keep his utensils and belongings there as he wishes. Since it's prohibited to have benefit from chametz on Pesach, one may not rent out a house or utensil specifically for chametz use, as we'll see later on in the next chapter in Kitzer. Nevertheless, if the landlord is in the city, he should obtain his permission to rent it out. This is not mentioned in Mishnah Berurah. Similarly, one who travels on a journey before Pesach and his wife will sell the chametz. In other words, she was appointed as his agent, as his shliach to sell the chametz, or to appoint the rabbi or the agent or the bezin to sell the chametz. A woman who personally owns chametz should arrange for the sale of a chametz or authorize her husband or another person to arrange for the sale on her behalf. Okay. So, and his wife will sell the chametz, should specifically grant her permission to rent out that room. Okay, so we're at 114, paragraph 6. It is prohibited to stipulate with the non-Jew that after Pesach, the non-Jew is required to sell the chametz back to him. No, that's not done. Or that the Jew is required to buy it back from him. We don't do that. 28. In fact, one should not make the sale dependent on any condition. In certain cases, this may invalidate the sale, and the Jew will have transgressed the prohibitions of it shall not be seen or it shall not be found. This is in Orach Chaim 448.4 with Mishnah Berurah 24 and Sharatzin 64. Okay. But the Jew may assure the non-Jew that he will buy it back from him and that he will award him a profit. In other words, he'll buy it back from him for more than the amount of the original sale. That you're allowed to say. Since this was not stipulated as a condition of the sale, and the sale is binding regardless of whether he ultimately fulfills his commitment, that's why it's permitted. Okay. We're going to paragraph 7. It is prohibited to sell the chametz to a male or female apostate, a mummer or a son of a female apostate. They're basically Jews as far as we're concerned, right? Somebody converts to Catholicism or becomes whatever it might be, and they become Pope the next day, as far as we're concerned. Got to do everything else the Jew got to do. You got to make a shahakal on the water you drink, you got to put on tefillin, you got to keep Shabbos. We don't consider that as anything. A Jew is a Jew. So even though she bore him from a union with a non-Jew after she became an apostate, so we don't care about with regard to this, they have the status of a Jew. An apostate remains a Jew and is thus required to fulfill all mitzvahs. As far as we're concerned, they have to do all the mitzvahs and liable for transgressing all prohibitions. The son of a Jewess, regardless of whether she is Torah observant or not, even if his father is not Jewish, is considered a Jew. And thus he too must observe all the mitzvahs. Thus, one may certainly not sell the chametz to such people. Mishnah Berurah 448:11, Sharet Tzion 14. Okay. And chametz owned by them is considered the chametz of a Jew, over which Pesach has passed, which is prohibited for benefit. It'll be asabanoi if the yontif. It'll be prohibited to have any pleasure from this. Now, there's more to that. One who sells the chametz to an apostate, to a mummer, also transgresses the prohibition of you shall not place a stumbling block before the blind, which is in Vayikra 19:14, which prohibits one from causing another person, another Jew, to sin, which this is mentioned in Mishnah Berurah 448:11. If advertently the chametz was sold to an unobservant Jew, a rabbinic authority must be consulted regarding the permissibility of the chametz after Pesach, because as far as we're concerned, they're our brothers and sisters. Maybe they don't think of it that way, but we definitely do. One may not sell one's chametz to a non-Jew married to a apostate Jew. Non-Jew that married a mumma, not allowed to sell to him, if according to civil law, one spouse has rights to property owned by the other. This is mentioned by Rav Feinstein in Niggas Moshe or Chaim, volume number 20.11. See below note 42 with regard to the chametz of an unobservant storekeeper who sold his chametz but dealt with the chametz during Pesach. Okay, that could also be a problem. We will continue. 8, paragraph 8. One who owns chametz in a different place, or that is in transit by coach or ship, may also sell it by dint of land that is in his place. Kinyan Agav, which we spoke about. Okay. Nevertheless, he should also declare it ownerless. He should make it have hefka before his bezin, before his rabbinical court, or before 3 people, in front of 3 people. This done as an added measure in case the acts of acquisition performed were not effective for the non-Jew to acquire the chametz that was not yet in his possession at that time. Okay. If the chametz that he sold was then delivered to him on Pesach, oh boy, the non-Jew purchaser is to pay the wages for the coach and any other expenses. Non-Jew must also keep the chametz in his possession. 48:3. Okay. If chametz was brought to him, was merchandise that was sent by a non-Jew, and he did not request it, nor was he aware of it, the non-Jew who purchased his chametz should receive it and pay what is due to the transporter. And the Jew should not involve himself in it at all. As far as he's concerned, it's not his. On the contrary, he should declare this too ownerless. He should say it's a hefka before bezin, in front of the rabbinical court, or in front of 3 people. Of course, he'll pay the guy back the expenses after Yontif. Paragraph 9. One who owns a mill and those who grind their wheat pay him a commission, or fermented chametz grain, must sell or rent the mill before Pesach to a non-Jew. Okay. Paragraph 10, this is the introduction to paragraph 10. Certain animals and fish require or benefit from a diet that includes chametz products. One may not keep such feed in one's possession over Pesach and must dispose of it or sell it with the chametz. Since chametz is prohibited for benefit, one may not even have a non-Jew feed the chametz, even if the chametz belongs to the non-Jew, to one's animals. This is in the next chapter, it's discussed. This paragraph discusses whether the owner has recourse to sell the animal to a non-Jew over Pesach. Okay, here we go. With regard to whether it is permissible to sell animals to a non-Jew over Pesach so that the non-Jew should feed them chametz, there is dispute among the great halachic authorities of blessed memory. And whoever is able to be cautious in this regard, in other words, and feed his animal only feed that is kosher for Pesach, that is preferable for him to do. If it is not possible for him to avoid this, he should act in accordance with the instructions of a halachic authority. Okay, there's much about this. Paragraph 11. It is permissible to lend a Jew a loaf of chametz bread before Pesach with the stipulation that he return to him a loaf of bread after Pesach. It is permitted to make the loan and accept the chametz in return, since there was no obligation to return the specific loaf of bread borrowed, but rather to repay its equivalent. Thus, no actual chametz was owned on Pesach. In fact, even if the borrower did not dispose of the bread as required, and it became prohibited when he kept it in his possession over Pesach, the borrower, he must nevertheless repay the lender with a different loaf of bread, as obligation was for the value of the loaf, not the actual loaf. Shabura 451. Even if the bread was borrowed on Erev Pesach, the day before Pesach, close to the time when chametz is prohibited in benefit, the borrower must repay a loaf of bread after Pesach, since at the time of the loan, the bread was an item of value. Okay, we'll continue. But there are places where the custom is to prohibit this. Knesset Agdala, cited by Be'er Hativ in 451. We're up to paragraph 12. In this paragraph, Kitzer raises the question regarding the status of one person's chametz that is in another person's possession when one is Jewish and the other is not. If the chametz of a Jew is in the possession of a non-Jew, or vice versa, that is, the chametz of a non-Jew is in the possession of a Jew, one should pose the question to rabbinic authority regarding how to conduct himself in this manner. If there are many different factors upon which the salaka, because there are many different factors upon which the salaka depends. Okay. Number 13, and the last one of this chapter. This is the introduction, the rabbinic prohibition of benefiting from chametz, which is called she'avar al Pesach, chametz over which Pesach has passed, is not limited to the owner of the chametz. In fact, no Jew may benefit from chametz that was owned by a Jew during Pesach. Therefore, after Pesach, one may not purchase chametz that a Jewish storekeeper owned on Pesach. It is necessary to be careful not to derive benefit after Pesach from the chametz of a Jew who is suspected of not having properly sold his chametz to a non-Jew. Following is a sample text of a document of sale of chametz. You want to hear it? I don't know what you said. Yes or no? Okay. We'll go through this procedure. The following is a sample text of a document of sale of chametz. I, the undersigned, hereby acknowledge having sold so-and-so, the non-Jew, all of the spirits that I have in the cellar of the residence in which I reside. The aforementioned cellar is located on the northern side of the courtyard and is the second cellar from the east. All of the spirits that I have there, whether in medium-sized casks or in large casks, I have sold it all to the aforesaid, the non-Jew, together with the utensils for the sum of 220 golden Österreicher Warung. That's the Kitzer was from Hungary, I believe. In addition, a rack that I have therein, that is contained in a large bottle containing approximately 7 measures, I've sold to him for 5 golden Österreichischer Warung, without the utensil. Additionally, unfiltered slivovitz that I have therein in a small keg, I have sold to him for 12 golden Österreichischer Warung and 50 Kreuzer with the utensil. I also have sold him 6 empty barrels that had contained spirits, as well as 2 large barrels with metal hoops that also contain no spirits that I have there. Thus, these barrels need not be cleaned of chametz residue before Pesach. Okay. All of these I have sold to him for 8 golden Österreichischer Warung and 50 Kreuzer. Additionally, 5 sacks of wheat flour that I have in the room that is called Speis, food pantry, that is assigned to my residence, I have sold to the aforesaid, together with the sacks for 39 golden Österreichischer Warung. Also, all the utensils used for chametz that I have there, that is kneading troughs and flour bins, I have sold him for 4 golden Österreichischer Warung and 50 Kreuzer. Additionally, barley grits in a small sack that I have there, I have sold to him for 1 golden Österreichischer Warung and 50 Kreuzer, together with the sack. I have received from him, the buyer, a down payment of 10 golden Österreichischer Warung, with the remainder being extended as a loan. Payment in full shall be made no later than 10 days from the date entered below. I have rented to the said purchaser the aforementioned cellar and room from now for a term of 10 days from the date entered below, for the sum of 4 golden Österreichischer Warung, of which I have received as a down payment 3 golden Österreichischer Warung. The remainder I have extended as a loan to be repaid no later than 10 days from the date entered below. And by dint of the land that is rented to him, that is the aforementioned cellar and room, I have transferred ownership to him of all the aforementioned movable possessions. I hereby totally acknowledge that I have rented to him the aforementioned cellar and room, and I have transferred ownership to him of all the aforementioned movable possessions, all types of effective modes of acquisition, which is, like we said, whichever of them is effective by the law of our holy Torah, and the civil law of the emperor. May his glory be exalted, and the state with neither claim nor recourse, the buyer has permission to do with all of the above items as he desires and wishes, including permission to sell or to grant as a gift, and to rent out without any dissent. Likewise, he has permission to immediately take all of the aforementioned items to his home. Nevertheless, should he choose to leave them in their current location, from now on, any loss that shall be borne entirely by the buyer alone. I accept no responsibility at all, not even for circumstances that are beyond one's control. I have granted the purchaser a right of way through my courtyard and house to access the aforementioned cellar and room that are rented to him. Additionally, should he wish, during the term of the rental, to sell any of the movable items to any other person, as well as whoever else he shall decide to bring, they are all granted the full right of way. Furthermore, I have given to the purchaser the keys of the aforementioned cellar and room. All of the above has been executed by the most effective manner according to the laws of our holy Torah and according to the civil law of the emperor. May his glory be exalted, and the state. Ungvar, that's where the Kitzer Shechinach came from, 14 Nisan 5639, Ruvain ben Reb Shimon Israelovich. The following is the Yiddish text. Chametz, established by the author of Noda B'Yehuda, in conjunction with his great rabbinical court. May the memory of the righteous be a blessing. This is in Shivas Tzion, Siman Yud Aleph, and B'tikunim, with corrections based on the opinion of the Chassam Sofer. We will not read the Yiddish. Okay, that's it for tonight. Have a good night.